Good evening, everybody. My name is James Kent, and I'm the Assistant Marketing Manager for the MBA program here at China Europe International Business School here in Shanghai. Shortly, I will be joined by our MBA Director of the MBA program, Professor Juan Fernandez, and the Assistant Director of Admissions for the MBA program at CEIBS, Mr. Stephen G. They will be joining me for an exclusive webinar where we will dive into some of the ways that we teach leadership here on the MBA program at CEIBS and answer your admissions questions. So just before we dive right into the webinar, let's first hear from Professor Juan as he shares with us a little bit about how CEIBS are tackling the challenges brought by COVID-19 here on campus. I hope you enjoy.
The safety of our MBA community, including, of course, students, faculty, and staff. And I'm very proud to say that we didn't have not a single case of any member of the community infected by the virus. So everybody is safe, and that was the most important thing. The second was to continue giving and delivering our classroom. And that's the reason we moved from offline to online. But as I said, this period is more or less over. Happily, we have our students back to campus. There's still some students that are abroad, and so we have to maintain like a hybrid way, yeah? Online, offline at the same time. So we are experimenting, as many other business schools, with different ways. One impact it has with the new batch is that we postpone the opening of the program from mid-August, which is the normal opening every year, to mid-October, 2 months later. Now, just to try to be sure that we can receive you all on the opening day of the MBA. Now, this will not affect the graduation time. What we have done is to, in a way, sacrifice some of the holidays, but the ending of the MBA will be as we planned before. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. That, as you say, it's a step in the right direction. Nice to have some more students back on campus.
Yes. Yes.
It's quite a big place just for staff and faculty, right at the moment. Before we move into leadership, Professor, which is why you're joining us this evening.
Yeah.
In your tenure of being the director of the MBA program, I was just maybe wondering if you could kind of a broad brushstrokes introduction into how the program is really designed to help the young professionals with their career development.
Okay, the MBA program is based on 3 pillars: rigorous academic rigor, experiential, and future-oriented. In a way, we are already suffering the competition of these online MBAs, and I think the online MBAs become stronger. One of the consequences of the pandemic, yeah. But still, full-time MBAs as ours offer something special, yeah. And we can talk later about more in detail about this. You mentioned about leadership, yeah.
Right.
But in the moment, I would say that the 3 pillars in which create the foundation of the MBA is academic rigor, experiential, and future-oriented. And I will have to add as well, I think that we are very proud that we have a very strong career department. I think we put him on the top of the world, yeah?
Mm. Okay, so let's dive into that in a little bit more detail then. You mentioned the MBA is designed around these 3 pillars. So taking them kind of one by one, let's start with academic rigor. So what does that, I guess, look like at CEIBS that's maybe different to other top business schools?
Okay, so I think there are 2 factors that make for a rigorous academic program. One is knowledge generation, and the second one is quality of teaching. And in CEIBS, we pay attention to both factors. For us, it's important. Knowledge generation, I think that any good business school should be able to create the knowledge that we deliver in the classroom. It's not about copying or repeating what others do, but creating our own knowledge. And this is based on 2 things, academic research, and I think CEIBS has become stronger and stronger in this area. Our professors are increasing the number of publications in top journals in the world. And the other one is cases. You know, cases is an important part of how we deliver our lessons, our teaching in the MBA. And of course, there are big offering of cases in the world from Harvard, Ivy School. But in CEIBS, we created our own case center, and we are generating our own cases and uses those cases as part of our classroom activities. Yeah. So this is one aspect of what makes a program academically rigorous. And the other one I said is the quality of teaching. And in CEIBS, we keep this balance. Yeah. We promote our faculty this academic rigor, but also the quality teaching. And in the MBA, we measure that, getting the feedback from the students, and every year steadily the rating of our faculty has been increasing. Yeah.
Okay, that's great to hear. So that's obviously on-campus academic rigor. The next pillar you talked about was experiential. So obviously it's, I think, clear for everybody that if we didn't, I guess, kind of combine the classroom experience with what's going on in the rest of China, because it's changing, you know, so much, we'd be really missing an opportunity. So what do we do at CEIBS, I guess, to kind of, you know, bring the students and plug them into what's happening outside of the campus walls?
Very good. So before I was mentioning about online MBAs, yeah, one thing that a full-time MBA do differently from an online MBA is that we offer an experience that is difficult to get through a computer screen. Think that the type of students that go to an online MBA somehow is different from the students that go to a full-time MBA. Right. Usually, online MBA students go for something that they can do while they are in their companies. Yeah. While the MBA, full-time MBA, they are thinking in a different way. Many times they want to change their careers. They want to change their companies. Sometimes they even want to add a new industry, a new function, even a new country to the combination, to the cocktail. Yeah. And this is what we try to do, to help them to do this transition. And sometimes, very often, we also have students that want to create their own business, yeah, the entrepreneurs. Now, the experiential part of CEIBS is very important for us. And this is in the second year when they have the electives. For instance, we have the ICSP, which is a consulting project. All the students are formed in teams, and they have to work on a real situation, in a real problem that a company brings to us. I have to say that around 60% of the projects that we receive every year, they have a digital component, digital transformation, which is becoming a very hot topic in China, and now even more after the pandemic. Yeah. One thing that we were supposed to start this year is the cooperation with MIT, doing some of these projects together with their MBAs and our MBAs. Another element of this experiential part is what we call real situation learning. And the usually traditional way to teach cases is that you bring the cases to the classroom, the students discuss them, and then there is a wrap up, a conclusion. Yeah. In the case of real situation learning, what we do is to take the students to the companies and discuss the situation with the executives that were involved into that case. At the moment, we have three courses that we call real situation. One is family business, and then we have founders of companies and the second generation in the classroom. We have Chinese companies going global, and the third one is innovation and new technology. This one in Shenzhen.
Okay. Okay.
Suzhou, sorry.
No,
Shenzhen.
Okay. South. Yes.
The south. Yeah. Now, also we have the overseas modules that this is very typical in many other business schools. We take our students to Japan, Israel, the Silicon Valley, Germany, Ghana. So we have a module in doing business in Africa and Malaysia. Yeah. And many of these modules, the purpose is to know what is going on in those countries. Right. Usually it's around the idea of innovation, like in Israel, yeah, or Japan as well. Yeah. Another important part of the program is what we call the e-lab. that is a lab for entrepreneurs. And basically is to help them to realize their dreams. They have a support team that help them to create the business plans, even helping them to meet other entrepreneurs already, right. Mixed with graduates from our MBA that already have their own companies, so they learn from each other. So it's create the environment, the ecosystem for them to help them to realize their dream. And internships, which is also very typical from other business schools, where you practice working for companies during a period of time. Yeah,
sure.
So
okay.
This is more or less.
So lots of content on the experiential side. And just to reiterate this point, if you have any questions throughout the webinar this evening, please write them in the chat box and we will cover them at the end. But the final pillar that you were talking about, Professor, was future orientated. And I guess I wonder what you've seen you're originally from Spain. I wonder what you've seen in China in your 20 years of being here that makes you realize that this is the place to be if you want an MBA that has this very much focus on what's going to happen in the future.
You know, you can imagine that 20 years ago, I joined CEIBS in year 2000. China was a very different country. It was basically starting the opening up of the economy, the reform process. The first multinationals were coming to China. The streets were full of bicycles and there were villages, even here in Shanghai. Now you don't see many of those. And in a way, I remember that people didn't have phones. Today, China is so different. It has a very modern infrastructure. They have the longest, highest speed train network in the world, and it's still growing. In the area of digital is really advanced. You mentioned that I'm from Spain. Yeah, if you compare Spain to what is going on in China in the digital world, they are in the next century, I would say. Yeah. So one of the ideas is that as our MBA program, we cannot be behind all this development. We have to be even ahead of them. So future orientation, we have incorporated around 30% of our electives. They have this digital and innovation component. Okay. And it's a very popular concentration. It's like a specialization in the second year that is taken by many of our MBA students. So courses like FinTech, and China is one of the main centers of FinTech in the world, blockchain, artificial intelligence, big data, strategy in the digital world is examples of this digital component, or creativity and design thinking, which is in the area of innovation. Yeah? Sure. Those are examples of courses that go in this direction about the future. Future that in a way is already the present, yeah?
Right. Okay, so that gives hopefully everybody a kind of an overview of how the MBA is put together using these three very distinct pillars. Next, we're going to talk about leadership. And we chose leadership as the topic for today for two main reasons. And number one, Professor Huan is from the OB faculty department at CEIBS, but also we thought it gives a nice example of how a lot of the education at CEIBS is informed by our motto, China Essence, Global Significance, but also incorporates these three pillars. So I think there's going to be a lot of highlights along the way. But maybe just to, we start off with a very big question, I guess, Professor. I mean, can leadership be taught? And if so, I mean, I imagine it can, but what do we do at CEIBS to
Well, my answer is yes. Otherwise, I would lose my job. Yes, but the way we teach leadership at CEIBS perhaps is a little bit different. Now, let me talk about leadership in general. Now, we use this word leadership, which is a noun, yeah? And nouns mean something that is fixed, like the table, yeah? Something static in a way. Gives the impression that it's something that you can learn by memorizing certain ideas or concepts or frameworks. I prefer to use the verb leading. Leading is an activity, it's something you do. To use an analogy, swimming. Now, how do you learn how to swim? You can read books, you can watch videos of great swimmers, you can have a coach that tells you how to move your arms and all this, and you can do that for a long time. Does it mean that you know how to swim?
Right.
Probably the answer is no, of course. You only learn how to swim when you jump into the water and start swimming. And I think that for me, this is a perfect analogy. What I think is leadership. Leadership is an activity, is something that you learn by doing. And I use a model, what is called the wheel of learning, with 3 components. You have a certain ideas, I will call it theories, of how to do something, let's say on leadership. Then you apply those ideas. Then you see through reflection what worked or didn't work.
Right.
Then you correct your original theory. That is the end? No, you have to continue because the situation changes, people are different, etc., etc. So this is a continuous process of trying something, applying, learning, improving, and that's the way I understand leadership. So I tell my students, I teach courses on leadership in executive education, and I tell them, don't expect that after this 2-day course on leadership, you can say to the people, hey, I'm a leader. I already finished a course on leadership. Right. I know everything. No, it's the starting point. And to become a leader can be a life endeavor. So it's always a work in progress. So in that sense, with that in mind, how can you teach leadership? That was your question.
Yes.
And in CEIBS, those are electives. We offer 4 courses on leadership in the second year. Now, there is another one, which is called the Leadership Journey. That's compulsory, and it starts with the orientation. The orientation is 3 days at the beginning of the MBA, in which the students are exposed to the case method, different teaching methodologies. We talk about personality. We talk about careers. Right. We talk about learning styles. And then we have 1 day at the end of the term 1 on the teamwork. Then we have other modules, other days, talking about leadership in different areas. Yeah? So this is compulsory. Every student has to do this in the first part of the MBA. Now, in the second part of the MBA, the second year, they have 4 electives that focus on leadership. And those are action leader, responsible leader, reflective leader, and charismatic leader. Those are electives, and each one takes one perspective on leading.
Okay. So let's take those, as you say, those 4 electives then, and dive into a little bit more detail. You mentioned the Gobi Desert as part of it. I know that you've been on the Gobi Desert experience, so I'm looking forward to hearing your insights. So without giving away the secrets, I mean, maybe you can explain a little bit about what an 88,000 kilometer trek through the Gobi Desert has to do with leadership and what our students learn. But before we do that, I think we have a clip of a previous Gobi Desert module. If my colleague can play the video, hope everybody enjoys this short video, and then we'll be back to me and Professor Juan to have a look at some of the highlights.
如果说用一句话来形容的话，因为我觉得来到戈壁，因为你回到一种最原始的状态。
我们团队定的目标是拿第1，我们的口号叫“生死看淡，不服来干”。
My team is A1. I think that this is one of the best experiences I have experienced in my life. It was amazing.
我们不是一个团伙，我们是一个团队。那么这种团队就需要这种相互协助的这种精神。 这里是很多人可能刚开始的第一次，也可能是很多人最后一次。无论他是刚开始以这一次为起点的第一次，还是他以这一次戈壁活动为终点的第一次，都会在这个人生的旅途中留下精彩的回忆。
我说我控制不住了吗？其实我在路上都跟他们说了，不管怎么样，我们都做到最好的自己。
顺境的时候大家都很开心，但是走戈壁主要是逆境。
我希望通过戈壁能够认识真正的自己，能够认识真正的朋友。
This is a lifelong journey, and I hope that this is not a one-time thing. They take this journey and continue to build on who they are as a person so that they can keep to who they are but be more successful in the future. And that's why I brought them here.
在这个团队的这个过程的相互认识里面呢，你会从跟别人的交往里面重新认识你自己。
Okay, wow, I was taken away by that slightly, very different from the classroom that we have here at CEIBS, right? I should also just say for note that this is a module that takes place with our executive MBA students, our EMBA students, which is why many of them are speaking Chinese during the video. Obviously, the MBA program at CEIBS is completely in English. But without detracting from it, it looked like a Hollywood movie, Professor, but maybe you can just share some highlights and also some takeaways on leadership that you had from the experience.
Yeah, I still remember that I joined the first time. We have this Gobi Desert module, and it was a great experience. Yeah, the students are formed in teams of 8 or 10 members, and in the same team you can have somebody that is a marathon runner, and somebody like me that cannot run very much. And the idea is that the whole team has to win. It's not the strongest that wins, it's the whole team. So the team has to organize themselves, have to support the weakest members. And the star in the team has to understand that he has to work or she has to work together with the others. So it's a great experience of working in teams. They have to do 88 kilometers in 3 days, and they cannot run. It's about walking at a certain speed, of course. And there are some tests and trials that they have to go through the whole process. At nights, they reflect on what happened during the day. What mistakes they made, what are the things, what are the learning, same as the model I was referring before, yeah, this the wheel of learning. Theories, experience, reflection, modify the theory, yeah. And we call it leadership in action or leading in action. And in a way, it's very appropriate because what we have during these days, all this tremendous situation with the pandemic, yeah? What happens when you are in a strange situation, different situation, difficult situation, and you have to make hard decisions sometimes, yeah? And that is an example of leading by swimming.
Right.
If you allow me to use the same analogy as before, yeah? Leading and learning by doing. This is one example.
Very nice, very nice. So that was very much focused, as you said, the module title is Leadership in Action. The opposite end of the spectrum, another module that we have, part of our series of China modules, electives that take place in very different pockets of China, goes to the very sedate ancient village of Jinhua in Zhejiang province. So again, I'm going to have to ask you to talk a little bit about it and why this module was created. But if we can watch a short video of the Jinhua module, we'll take it from there.
The motto that we have is China Depth, Global Breadth. As part of the China Depth, we want our students to have a real understanding of China. Part of that is the Jinhua module, in which we take the students to a Chinese village, and we have the course during 4 days in that Chinese village.
So what attracted me the most was to get out of Shanghai and to experience some more about China, and also have the opportunity to just take a second to reflect on your life, be with your classmates, and also have a professor basically guide you through this journey.
So it's a village of around 2,000 inhabitants, so a very small Taoist village.
The module is about leadership from inside.
It's about taking a pause in your life, but to reflect on what you really want for your career-wise or life overview.
It's a very complicated subject. We need to understand what success is. And the big problem is that everybody has different definition of success. Trying to answer this question and speaking openly is something which helps us to better understand our life and to reflect.
So it's an opportunity to live a different China, not the modern China that we see in Shanghai, in the big cities, but a China that still exists, the China in the countryside, in the rural areas.
What adds more value to the course is that we are having in a very rural Asian village in which we get exposure to the local villagers and also the natural environment.
We were living with a host family, and the Ai cooked for us every day and prepared like 12 to 13 dishes, which was super impressive because she did it alone for 12 people. The mornings would usually begin with a yoga session and a meditation, which I found really beneficial.
The teacher told us, if you cannot use your actions to change something, you have to go around it. Don't be so trapped into your problems, but to think what else you can do to improve your situations.
I mean, that has a great value because when we're here, we mainly talk about business, about what you want to do on the short term. We rarely think about what's meaningful to us.
Outside the classroom was the tea picking, which was especially interesting to me because I work in agriculture before, so it was really interesting that we all got the opportunity.
I realize how close I am from those people because that's the last module we have before splitting up. Everybody is going to really change, they are going to have internship. For most of us, we'll not see each other before January next year.
We as MBA graduates should be bearing more responsibility and be more conscious about those people who are in need. In the business sense, we can do more to help them. So I think that's very important to me, and I will bear that in mind into my future career.
I think now I become more clear what kind of life I want, and also take a moment to really reflect yourself every day. So that's very inspiring.
Okay, very nice. Welcome back, everybody. It's a very peaceful video, especially compared to the chaos
to
of
the
previous
one. Yes.
So I know that obviously this is something that's very close to your heart, Professor, and you designed this this module. You know, why did you design it, and then maybe talk through the student experience, what they tend to get away from it.
Okay, so the previous module was about action, leading in action, and we have to, as a leader, to make decisions in the environment. Sometimes it's not easy, sometimes it's complicated, But another important factor for a leader is know yourself. to be a good leader, you have to know yourself, what your strengths, what are your weaknesses. Nobody expects that a leader is perfect in everything, but a leader has to be able to understand what are their limitations, right, and create a team around that. Yeah. So it's a module that is designed to reflect about yourself. We talk about important questions about, for instance, what is success? Questions about what are your career goals in the future? What is your purpose in life? And we're doing in this environment, this old village. It's a village that is in the mountains, surrounded by hills and tea plantation. And it's a very old village, I think more than 1,000 years old. The classroom where we teach the course is 500 years old. Yeah. So it's an experience. And also another important aspect is that allows the students to live, because they live with the farmers in their houses, to understand another different type of China. Not the China in the big cities like Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, and others, but a China that is still important, that still exists in rural areas. So I think it's an experience to go inside yourself. Yeah, that's the idea.
I see. Okay, so the third pillar then of this model of leadership takes advantage of one of our overseas electives that goes to Malaysia. So this module focuses on becoming socially responsible leaders. Maybe you can talk through a little bit about this elective in Malaysia.
Yeah, this is one of our professors, Professor Ba, and he's from Malaysia, and he has his own NGO. It's called Flame Camp. And the idea of this camp is to help students in schools about important values in life. Yeah. Then we take a group of our MBA students, go to this camp, the Flame Camp, and help teach the students, work with them. So for them to understand what is important, these values. Yeah. But at the same time, they teach. The students also learn those values. Yeah. So it's a two-way learning. And what is the purpose? It's the purpose that we talk about action, we talk about reflection, but also leaders have a responsibility towards society. So our idea is that they don't forget that besides creating jobs or making money and selling products, they also have to do something that is positive to the society. Yeah. Is the responsible leader.
Right.
That's the idea.
Right. Wonderful. Okay. And then the final piece of this model that you're building, it actually kind of puts our MBA students up on the stage, right? Becoming actors. So maybe you could talk. What does acting have to do with leadership? What can the students expect from this experience?
Well, this module is about the charismatic leader.
Right.
Yeah. So we, in a way, we cover, I think, the important aspects of leadership. Different ways, different methodology, but all learning by doing, by swimming. Yeah, sure. So if you think, an important part of leader is managing their emotions. Yeah, you know the concept of emotional intelligence. Yeah, understanding your emotions, regulating your emotions, understanding others' emotions. Yeah, and if you think, who can do this very well? Actors. Actors is all about connecting with other people, communicating. It's about expressiveness. It's about creating emotions and producing emotions in the audience. Yeah. So this is a course on leading. It's not a course on acting, but I'm very interested in acting. I went to acting school and took some courses. So I thought, let's take some of the tools that actors learn applying to leadership. So, but I repeat, it's not a course on acting, it's a course on leading that use acting techniques. And for instance, the final exam in the course is that the students, they are forming teams, they have to create their own play, short play, 10 minutes, and then perform the play in front of the class. That's the final exam, yeah? And we have the course not in a normal classroom, but in the theater that we have here at CEIBS.
Fantastic. Yes, very memorable performances each year. Yes, always a highlight of the calendar. So just before we move on to the Q&A, I think there's maybe a couple more questions, Professor. I know, first of all, that you're very close with a community of CEOs at multinationals in China and have worked extensively with them over the years. Maybe from obviously spending time and learning from these China-based CEOs, you could give the audience kind of some of your, I guess, kind of key takeaways from what they can do to improve their own skill set at a younger age of their career.
Yeah, I just published a book on where I interviewed 25 CEOs of multinationals in China and 5 China experts on different aspects. Yeah. What are the main lessons that somebody that can listening to us at the moment can take from this research? The first thing that appears as very important in this book is already mentioned, the digital. The digital revolution in China has transformed completely the way we do business. And I'm talking about a very short period. Yeah, 5 years ago, China was very different. Today, I mean, people don't use money anymore. Everything is with the phone. Phone is your bank, is your credit card, is the way you identify yourself. And people are used to order online. So all these elements are very important to be successful in China. So again, if you want to be successful here as a business person, you have to know about the digital world. That's the first thing. Second is that China is still a very competitive market for talent. Although they are MBA, our MBA is #1 in China, but there are other MBAs in the country, and the amount of graduates they produce is not enough to feed all the companies that require this type of talent. Talent is very important, and it's a lot of competition among companies, but also that's the other side. They expect people that are ready to be productive right on. You know, companies are hungry for talent, but they want talent that they know what they're doing with experience. And also another important part that is the mission of our MBA. Train them, form them, so they can be productive, ready for the market right away. And innovative mindset, proactive and innovative mindset. That's also very important in somebody that want to be successful in this country.
Okay, fantastic. I'm just a little bit wary of time, so just one final question. For people that are hoping to submit their applications for our round 4 deadline on Wednesday, do you have any advice, Professor, for the participants that are really looking to think, how can they make the most of their MBA experience at CEIBS? Should they be admitted and join the program in October?
Okay, I will separate my answer in 2 aspects: classroom learning and outside of classroom. You know, one important instrument we use in MBAs is the case method. And for some people that come perhaps for a more traditional type of education, that is about listening, memorizing, and then taking exams, the case method sometimes is a shock. Right. Because there is not like first of all, a solution. That people expect, okay, what is the solution? We discussed this case, what is the solution? And some people might feel frustrated because of that. And actually the case is not designed just to give you a solution, because the situations that you might find in real life could be very different from what is described in the case. That solution would be very good for Amazon, but not necessarily is the solution that will solve your problems later. Right. It's more about a way of thinking. It's about how you arrive to that solution that is important. The other important element that could be different from other traditional ways of learning is that class participation is very important. And sometimes people complain, they say, why we have to discuss so many minutes or hours instead of listening to the professor? Tell us what is what we have to learn and we memorize. And no, that's not an MBA education. You have to be able to express your ideas, to produce good arguments, and to convince other people, and also learn from other people. another point of view. A great value of an MBA is the diversity we have in the classroom. And in CEIBS, we make a big effort to have diversity, like male, female, and we have a very big percentage of females joining our programs, the 40% more or less. Cultural diversity, and we have a very diverse type of students, but also industry diversity. All this diversity increase the learning. So the learning is not only professor, students, it's only students, students. So this is about the classroom learning. But the MBA is not only the classroom, it's also what happens outside the classroom. And our students are expected to take leadership in many areas. For instance, there are club of students. The students form clubs according to their career interests. So there is a consulting club or a healthcare club. And they organize events by themselves. They ask executives from those specific industries to come and talk to them. They got gatherings, for instance, the consulting club, how to prepare for an interview for consulting job, and help each other. So it's not only what happened in the classroom, it's also what happened outside of the classroom. For that reason, the MBA is an experience. It's not just learning from books, from cases. It's about an experience that you cannot take online.
Yes.
That's the basic idea.
Yeah.
And I think that more or less covered what I think is important. Yeah, you have to have an open mindset, be able to learn, and sometimes to teach your classmates.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you very much, Professor. I know you're used to talking a lot with lectures, but obviously it's great to hear so many insights for you this evening. Next, we're going to move into the Q&A part of our evening, and I think we've got maybe about 15 or so minutes. So we're going to welcome across, if we move over a little bit, the Assistant Director of our MBA admissions, Mr. Stephen G. So a little bit like Professor Huan. Okay, so a little bit like Professor Huan, Stephen, you've been here for 20 years or over 20 years now.
About 20 years now.
About 20 years, fantastic. So I will load up the questions and then we can have a chat through.
Little image there is covering the Stephen face.
I don't think we can move that. Oh, there we go. Yes, okay, so bear with me 1 second. Maybe Stephen, whilst I load this, if you'd like to give the audience some...
Hey, good evening, everyone. Very nice to virtually meet you here. My name is Stephen G. I'm the Assistant Director for MBA Marketing and Admissions in the MBA department at CEIBS. As James mentioned, I've been working with the school for a long time, about 20 years now. So I'm very familiar with maybe the point that you will be interested in admissions and MBA program. So we got to have 2 days, additional 2 days for you to prepare if you want to really submit your application this year. So the deadline will be the day after tomorrow, this Wednesday. So I'm very happy to join the Q&A session.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Stephen. So first question that I'll cover today is from Koyama, who asks a little bit about our Case Development Center, Professor. And do we create cases about all types of companies, or is it just Chinese companies that we're creating?
The case is mostly focused on China, although there are some cases that are global companies in China, because one of the ideas of CEIBS is that when you come to CEIBS, you will be connected with the rest of the world. We don't forget about the rest of the world. But one of the motivations for many people coming to CEIBS, especially international students, is to know more about China, how you do business in China. And that makes sense because China is becoming the most important economy of the world and is somehow unknown for other business schools. Yeah. So we produce our own cases on Chinese organizations, but also we have that in the context of China. And as I said before, some of the cases are taught in the companies.
Right.
And I think that is unique, very special on what we do.
Sure.
in CEIBS.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Stephen, maybe a question to bring you in. So we have Jiang Zibao asks, would we consider people on the MBA with over 15 years experience, or would you also advise them to consider the EMBA or the global EMBA program? If you could maybe just explain some of the differences between the two and advice for Zibao.
Okay. So it's about questioning how to have a right program for yourself. Actually, CEIBS offers multiple programs here at CEIBS. MBA is a full-time English teaching program. If you look at our student profile, the average work experience will be 5.5 to 6 years of work experience, and ranging from maybe a minimum student with 2 years work experience to maximum maybe 12, sometimes 13, 15 we got student, rarely got student. But so basically the range is between 2 and 12 years. So if a candidate with 15 plus years of work experience, it's actually not within our normal range. But I would ask you, it really depends on what do you want to achieve through the business education. Now here at CEIBS, we also offer EMBA. So if we look at our EMBA profile, on average, our EMBA student will have 18 years of work experience. This is average, and ranging from a minimum of 10 years work experience to 20 years and sometimes 25 years work experience. So they also have a large range of work experience. But in general, they are the people at on average 40 years old man or businesswoman in our EMBA classroom. And this is a part-time based. And for EMBA, we offer Chinese teaching EMBA and also English teaching EMBA, which we call it global EMBA. So a global EMBA student profile, actually they are at the same age as our Chinese EMBA, which is also at on average age 39, 40 years old. So for the part-time program versus the full-time MBA program, the key difference also comes from those who already have taken important position in the company, in the career. So if they are pursuing a full-time MBA, the opportunity cost will be really huge. But for those who are relatively young, at the earlier stage of the career, and to do a full-time MBA, leave the job a while to get fully immersed in the MBA learning environment, will make you a big jump after MBA. So it really depends on the different purpose. So I think given your background, someone with 15 plus years of work experience, I think MBA is not a good fit anymore. So EMBA wise, you will definitely between the age range, but as you might aware, our EMBA students are not only old, but on a senior position level of a sizable company. So they've already accumulated a lot of rich managerial experience, and they are very important now for the company. So in order for them to bring the company to a higher level, they need to learn modernized managerial knowledge to bring the company to a higher level. So for this type of level person, EMBA is more suitable. Yeah, so that's my answer.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. I'm going to come straight back to you. We have a participant called Hems who asks about how we maintain the ratio of Chinese and international students in the class. Is it something we target each year, or do we naturally end up with a 1/3, 2/3 ratio?
Okay, that's a very good question. First of all, I would start with the location where the CEIBS is focused. We are nicely situated in Shanghai, where, as you all may all know, Shanghai is a hub to accommodate almost all multinational company. Of course, a lot of Chinese company, private company, all concentrated here in Shanghai. So they provide huge demand for well-educated business talents. So that decided that as a B school, as an international B school, it's equally nice for us to take a Chinese student and also to take an international student. So that after MBA education, both group of students, they will have good opportunity as the demand is there here in Shanghai. So that's the first. then how much percentage of the student we take from either international side or Chinese side, it really depends on each individual. When we are looking at each individual applicants, if they are really good, if they really have the right motivation to do MBA at CEIBS, we will just take them in. That's basically the logic when we make each individual's admissions decision in the past many years. Then once we finish all the admissions decision and look back, what is the percentage of our international students? Sometimes it could be 30%, sometimes could be 35%. So over the past 5, 8, 10 years, our international student ratio is always somewhere between 30% to 35%. So we don't really set a fixed international percent ratio. It's more, it's actually purely based on each individual's quality. Then when we finish each admission decision and come up with a class, then we will look at the international ratio. So that's how we set up the class at CEIBS MBA.
Perfect. Okay, thank you, Stephen. I'm going to ask you one more question,
sure.
And then I give you a little bit of a break. So will the 2021 intake be back in August, or will it still be in October, which it will be for this year, 2020?
2020 is a graduating class.
Sorry, the intake.
Intake. Okay, so actually we have because of the outbreak of coronavirus earlier this year in Wuhan and some area in China, so the school leadership has made a decision to postpone from normally we started program in August to for 2 months to October 12th. So this is a decision already been made, and at the moment we are all working towards that timeline. So I can tell you we are preparing for the program starting from October 12th this year, and at the moment actually we just basically completed recruiting more than half, actually much more than half. So we are very looking forward to get ourselves well prepared and meeting our new batch of students in October. And as maybe James or Professor Huan mentioned in earlier of this session, we actually today we just started the offline program with our current MBA student. So everything is ready here at CEIBS, and we are looking forward to them in October.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. I give you a little bit of a break now.
Thank you.
So we have a great question from Felix. We'll try and get through as many of these as we can, by the way. If we don't cover your question, then actually after this event, tomorrow morning, we'll send up a follow-up email with some of the resources from tonight, and also an invitation to have a one-on-one chat with me and my colleagues in the admissions team. But Professor Huan, we have a question from Felix here, who says, as a local student who are already very familiar with the domestic situation in China, but lack the international exposure, what kind of CEIBS MBA modules are designed for us to better understand some overseas trends and operate globally?
Okay, yeah. As I said before, we want to keep a balance in the MBA between China, we say China depth, and global breadth, the two aspects. So there are things on both sides. For instance, in the international part, we have the overseas module. At the moment, we have 6 overseas modules. We have one in Silicon Valley. We spent 1 week there visiting companies and having presentations and lectures by local professors and practitioners. So it's an opportunity to know what about type of innovations, what is the what makes Silicon Valley special. We have another module which is in Israel. Israel is one of the countries that they call it the startup nation, and they have many innovations in small business. Again, we go to Tel Aviv University with local faculty and the opportunity to meet with business people in Israel and learn what they are doing, how they are doing. The same happens in Japan, where we go to a business school in Tokyo, and we also have the exposure ideas of what's going on in Japan. We have the module in Switzerland, Germany, about innovation in operations, and the African module, doing business in Africa, where the students go to Accra. We have a campus there, the same way that CEIBS also have a campus in Zurich. Yeah. So we ourselves, our very international business school. China is our base, but we have presence in 2 other continents, Europe and Africa. And the Malaysian module that I mentioned before. Yeah. So we have this overseas module that give plenty of opportunities to know other countries, other ways of doing business. Then we have exchange programs with universities from all over the world. I think around 70 different universities.
40, sorry.
40. In Europe, in US, in South America, in India, in Australia. So you have the opportunity to do a term in those universities. Again, that gives you an exposure to other countries and meeting people from other countries. And don't forget that we send our students abroad, but we also get students from abroad. Right. So in a way, they also bring the international world to our campus. And you will have opportunity to study together with students from INSEAD, from London Business School, from Wharton, from Kellogg's, those big universities coming to our own campus. So this is a part of what is the experience about institutions. But also the cases, the material we use in our classroom. I said some of the cases are produced by us, created by us, but we also cases from Harvard, Ivy, and other business schools in our learning method. So again, we have opportunities for everybody.
Right, right. I would just maybe add to that, Felix, as well. As Professor Juan said, in the second year, you'll be working with the inbound exchange students from these top schools. But also, obviously, as part of the cohort, we tend to have a balance between 2/3 Chinese and 1/3 international. So you'll also be with a very international cohort. And even the Chinese students, many have graduated from overseas universities or have worked overseas and are coming back to China. I'd maybe just add as well that the mentorship program that we have here at CEIBS is very strong. And if it was really your focus to get more integrated into more of a global business community, then to pick up a mentor who's also not from China would also be somebody that could help you grow and develop your skill set. Yes, yeah. Stephen, we have a question from an international student here, Jode Haddy. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name. So does the program support us in learning Mandarin? And is there anything else the school does that helps us to settle into the different culture of coming to China? And it's a long question, but at the end of that, what are the job prospects, I guess, for international students? Maybe we can all answer.
Okay. So first of all, our MBA program is taught entirely in English, 100% English teaching program, and with 30-35% international students. And but again, we have more than half, 65 to 70% of Chinese students. They are Chinese native speaker. Okay. So, but beyond within the program, it's all about English language. But outside of the classroom, we offer international student Mandarin courses. Actually, a couple of hours a week, and this is a free of charge. School hire Mandarin teacher to teach our international student Chinese while they are studying MBA. And also, from what we observe every year, a lot of our international students, they spend extra efforts and hours, energy to hire personal tutor to really enhance their Mandarin skills. So, of course, if we come with a good level of Mandarin, then, of course, you don't need to enroll to the Mandarin course at the beginner level. You just, in a lot of occasions outside of classroom, you just talk to your Chinese peers in Chinese. And that will really bring your Chinese level to a very good level, business level. But that requires you to come with quite good Chinese skills. But again, most of our international students, they come with zero Chinese, which is okay, no problem at all, because we offer Mandarin teachers to you. So you have a few hours spent on Chinese learning. If you improve quickly, of course, you are encouraged to spend more time enhancing your Chinese. And also career perspective, as I mentioned, if you speak, when you graduate from the program, then if you speak multiple language, especially English plus Chinese as a foreigner, it will help you greatly in the career searching process. Because as I said, here in Shanghai, we are luckily situated in the hub that accommodate almost all type of company, foreign company, Chinese company, private company, joint JVs, a lot of companies. So they do require to, they do need to hire talents. So for example, a foreign company, if they want to hire someone to help them to deal with local Chinese market, they need to hire Chinese, or they need to hire people that can speak native level Chinese, because you are going to talk to Chinese clients, right? That makes sense. But a bigger portion of a lot of multinational company, actually, they need to hire people to deal with that global market. In that sense, they need to hire people who don't need to necessarily speak good Chinese, as long as you can speak the global language like English, or if you are responsible for a Spanish-speaking area, you might, and if you speak good Spanish, you can have a good job to help them to deal with Latin American market, Spanish market, and so forth. So same reason. So it really depends on how you position yourself. And luckily, CEIBS has recruiters that every year they provide job opportunity. One part Chinese Mandarin speaking, another part non-Chinese Mandarin speaking opportunity. Both they do offer a lot every year.
Mm-hmm. I'd also encourage everybody, as I say, tomorrow we'll be sending through a follow-up email. One of the resources really to take a good look at is our career report that our colleagues in the Career Development Center put together each year. And this really goes into a lot of detail for the job outcomes of the Chinese students versus the international students. But the other trend that we're seeing more and more, as well as writing cases about Chinese companies and also Chinese companies going global, is that now Chinese companies recruiting to help them expand into overseas markets. And this is a really nice opportunities for internationals, but also Chinese to be a part of that global journey.
Oh yeah, you just remind me. Actually, now we see a very obvious a rising trend that more and more Chinese companies, they are going global, and even just among our CEIBS alumni network, as my colleague mentioned earlier, CEIBS is not only offering MBA, we have actually EMBA and a lot of other executive level programs, which means within CEIBS alumni network we have a lot of alumni who are taking very important position, and they are going global. So we know that, and we know their needs. For a Chinese company going global, definitely they need to hire global talent to help them to solve the global issues. So in that sense, being here as a foreigner, being here in Shanghai, in China, to get some culture understanding, build a network, build the opportunity, talking to executive level people. So what is their thinking process, and how are you going to deal with this type of level people effectively by being here a while. Then maybe you end up with being hired by a Chinese company who want to expand business in North America or Europe. And as a foreign talent, it will be a nice fit for you to work for them, to help them to grow business outside of China. Yeah, so that's exactly a very nice fit for CEIBS International MBA, and it gives a great opportunity for our international students.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think maybe we have time for maybe one or two more questions. Professor Huan, there's a question come in from Silla. Welcome, Silla. Thank you for joining us this evening. Just about the impact of the corona pandemic on the admission process, but then also the schedule of the MBA from October onwards. So from my understanding, I mean, everything at the moment, we start in October, but everything else will be similar to the current MBA program.
Yeah, we try to adapt to the circumstances, yeah? So reduce the program by 2 months, but the content, the number of courses, the credits will be exactly the same. One thing is that you have to sacrifice some of your holidays, yeah? So there will be some modules, overseas modules, for instance, during the Chinese New Year. Instead of 2 weeks, you will have only 1 week. But usually what people do is that if they have a module in San Francisco, for instance, they use the extra week to explore parts of the United States or in Israel. Many times they go to Jordan and spend the rest of the holidays there, or Turkey, yeah? But at the end, you will have exactly the same content and the same options that in the other program. A little bit more intensive, so expect work hard, but you will survive and you will complete the program on time. That was also one of the objectives that we have. You graduate as planned.
Sure. And the second part of the question was more from the admissions perspective, Stephen. So obviously we created the round 4 that will close on Wednesday. That was a decision that was taken very early on in the outbreak of the pandemic. Maybe Stephen, you could wrap up and you could talk to anybody that's finishing up their applications and that's preparing to do an interview. You've probably done more interviews and read more applications than anybody at CEIBS. So any kind of last words of advice or wisdom you can give somebody that's preparing to apply in round 4?
Okay. So first of all, you still have a few days to prepare your application. And secondly, do not submit the application post the deadline. So be sure to make it submitted before the deadline. Then, of course, to really think about if it's MBA, it's the right program, you are doing it in the right time, and it really helps you to achieve your professional career goal. That is more related to each individual, because everybody, although they come with the same program called MBA, but everyone have different goals, and they have different pain points, different career aspiration. So you really need to understand how are you going to leverage the MBA experience to achieve your career goal. Because from our school side, we really want to have someone, to recruit someone who we really can help them to achieve the goal. So as we always mention that, what are the criteria to measure CEIBS or any business school if they are a successful business school or not, purely based on if their MBA graduates are successful, then that school is successful. So we use the same criteria to measure ourselves. So we really want you to think about how are you going to effectively leverage the MBA experience. Given our professor introducing you who we are, what we offer in the program, and also career opportunities, and you can also spend some time from the website to really understand who we are, and also reach out to our student ambassador, talking to our MBA alumni, previous graduates, or you just Google, search from LinkedIn by typing CEIBS to really find someone who shares a similar experience as you have now, to ask about how the program has helped them to achieve their career goal, and how they suggest you to better prepare. So with this type of, we call it due diligence. You should be responsible for your own decision, because MBA is probably one of the most important decisions in your life. So you should invest time to investigate with the school, but also equally importantly to understand who you are, what you want to do, and where you want to go in the future. So with that in mind, I think you have better prepared mindset. Then of course, when you come to us in an interview or in different setting of the admission process, I'm sure you will easily outstand yourself. Yeah, so I think that's will be the suggestion. Wonderful. For better preparation.
Great. Thank you very much, Stephen. That's, I think, a nice point to end on. Sadly, due to time restrictions, I think you both have meetings after this, so we'll have to call it an evening here. We have some questions in the Q&A that haven't been answered, and what we'll try and do is prepare answers for those in the email that will be going out to everybody tomorrow. But then just to close on, as I mentioned from Steve, as Stephen mentioned, feel free to reach out to us in the admissions office and colleagues. We're more than happy to help. Best of luck with anybody that's applying. We hope to see you in October, and stay safe, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Bye.